Call the meeting of the Waco City Council on February 6, 2024 to order at 3:03 p.m. Please join me in a moment of silence, and please keep in mind the life and legacy of our great community leader, Commissioner Pat Chisholm Miller. Thank you. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on agenda items or during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda on items other than public hearings. Speakers will be allotted one 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you're here to speak and have not filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary staff at the registration table outside of the auditorium to provide information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to council. If you're unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak on a work session agenda item? If not, then we will now recess the regular session and convene to work session with a report from our city manager.
Thanks, Mayor, and welcome to the public to this afternoon's meeting. Sounds like I've got a little, do I sound weird on here? It sounds strange from
Same as usual.
Thanks, Jennifer. No changes on the agenda today, but we do have a great agenda developed, updates from our public safety teams. I think the council and public will really enjoy. We do have one informal report this afternoon on the agenda. It's IR 046. It is our quarterly update on plating activity. And that's a report that Clint Peters and development team put together based on activity through October of 23 to December of 23. And we've added some more information to that based on council feedback. If you've got additional points of feedback you want, just let me know and we'll get those added to the next report.
Am I sounding okay? I think I got some feedback too.
You sound perfect. Yeah, your voice is so beautiful.
Yeah, right. No, I love y'all know I love this report. I love this report. And there was one other thing, and I don't know if we can put in the. I'll follow up with Clint and you, Bradley, on this. But if we could put in houses that have been certificates of occupancy that have been issued within those developments, is that, because what I want to get out of this eventually is like, what is the inventory of lots that are out there that have been approved, platted, et cetera? I think that will help us in our housing shortage strategies, because we know the urban lots, we had a great report on that a couple weeks ago. But then most of these are suburban, although as we're seeing now, they're all over the place actually. Yeah. But this kind of is at least setting the stage for housing, and for the most part, residential and housing development. So I don't know if some of that may be confidential, I don't know.
No, we can do that. We can layer on, I think that'll be, I saw Clint give me a nod, so I think we're able to do that and show the number of lots in each subdivision and how many have been built and how many remain.
It would be like over time, and
Yep.
we look back, and I don't know if we've done this 2 quarters in a row now, and I don't know if we can go back, say, for a full year.
We will, yep, we will.
Just to get the idea of where they are, what they are, what developments are being built out, kind of what's left out there. Because this council is conscious about infrastructure and dragging infrastructure and roads and police and fire and water and wastewater to these developments. And if our longer term planning is getting more, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, way out in China Springs somewhere. But
Yep.
I think we can see, I'm sorry I'm going on so long on the first item here. But
That's all right. No, I think,
as we can see from last week, planning out for chocolate all that out there. I mean, that's because we're getting these kind of plating demands out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think this is a great report. I think we just put a couple more columns in there, look at the history, and I think it's going to tell a nice story.
be glad to put that in the next one and keep reporting on it.
Yep. Thanks, Bradley.
We have 5 public hearings today. You're going to hear from Clint on those later in the work session. And we have 19 resolutions on the agenda today, and I'm going to highlight just a couple of them. First is Resolution 067, selecting Hunt Development Group from among the 11 submittals that we received for the downtown P3 project on the request for proposals. Today's resolution authorizes me to begin negotiating an agreement with Hunt, which I suspect will be a long process, maybe as much as 12 months, as we outline refinements to our plan, the phasing of development, funding strategies, as well as any necessary changes to infrastructure plans and zoning. So as you think about when a development agreement, a master development agreement might come to council, it's likely to be in 2025. But excited to select or recommend selection of Hunt today, and just want to acknowledge we had some really quality submittals from others that aren't being selected. It doesn't mean they weren't valuable and great potential teammates for us. It just somebody needed to win, and so the recommendation of Hunt is my recommendation, but want to acknowledge each of those other submitters for the work that they put together, and also want to acknowledge Tom Balk, our Director of Strategic Initiatives. I'm sure he's in here somewhere scanning. There he is, yeah. Thanks, Tom, for leading the staff team on this. Definitely herding cats is probably the right analogy, particularly me, probably chief cat of all. You've done a really fine job in this process, and want to acknowledge your work as well.
Anything else on that? I wanted to comment on that one too. I mean, this is, what are we calling this project? The downtown, the DT, the Downtown Development Project, or the downtown 60 acres, right? It's not like the back 40, it's like the downtown 60. But anyway, it's transformational, and I like the exercise that we're going through. I mean, it's a long-term deal. This isn't a one-year deal or a 2-year deal. This is a 10, 20-year transformational vision. And I don't know, anybody that's been through corporate training or whatever, you go through what they call BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And the important part of having a big goal, like being the best in the world, is not, it's too general. What we try to do is kind of at least define what it is we're trying to get. And I think this exercise is going through some level of definition of what we want that project to look like. And it may not look like it at the end, but at least we're putting down pen on paper and doing a lot of diligence on this on the front end. What do we think we want downtown, the 60, to look like, which I think is a very important process. As Bradley has said, this isn't a 3-week process and we start building. This is at least probably another year until we get the vision kind of in place, get some sequencing, get some prioritizing, get some traction on certain parts of this. But I was very impressed by, and I guess we can say this, I was really impressed by the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago where we brought all the, well, not even all of them. There's only 4 out of the 11 or so that we had. These are world-class developers and world-class names. I've been lucky enough to run businesses in a couple different countries and see a lot of different things. And these names are very prominent, and they want to come to Waco. They like Waco. They see a future in Waco. And I'm very, very excited about what we're doing here and how we're tracking this. And also for those, I know we're saying one here, but there were a lot of different subcontractors, for lack of a better term, in all of the bids. And this being a 10, 15, 20-year project, I'm sure that at some point in the future, most of these folks will have chances to get back in. So I appreciate the process, Tommy, that you and your team ran, and this is just the beginning. So thanks for this.
Well said.
Yep.
Second highlight, Resolution 068 approves the use of Public Improvement District Number 1 funds for a 9-month contract between City Center Waco and Lawns Limited. I always thought it was Lawns Unlimited, but I guess it's Lawns, is it right? Lawns Limited? Okay. Again, $180,000 9-month contract for landscaping maintenance services within the PID. These services include things like sidewalk areas on major streets, side streets, and alleys, the removal of fallen leaves and debris on streets and sidewalks, power washing of areas frequented by our feathered friends in the PID. There's a lot of those. Installation and removal of items like planters and wreaths and bows and banners, as well as tree trimming. always want to highlight that item. And we've got a service map shown on the screen here. The blue area is the PID zone. And then, of course, the streets that are serviced in red are the major streets, and the alleys in yellow on my screen kind of look orange on the main screen in the middle.
I'm excited to continue to support having a clean and safe downtown, and think that as we move forward with this, I know that a couple years back, we implemented, or we passed our Kimley Horn Streetscape Plan, and just want to encourage us to continue to have a desire for Waco's downtown to be pristine. I do think that there's more that we can do in terms of streetscaping, landscaping. I think that there's some things that we can do that are expensive. I think there's some things we can do that are not as expensive. And we need to continue to explore how we can work with PID and City Center and the city to really increase the, raise the bar to ensure that downtown is a clean and safe space. And it, again, I'm proud of the work we're doing, but just want to continue to push us to get better.
Appreciate that, Mayor. Final highlight, I wanted to highlight a couple of resolutions that deal with housing rehabilitation. Those are resolutions 069 to 071. And again, they cover 3 housing rehabilitation and lead abatement deferred forgivable loans for houses in Waco utilizing our HUD as well as our ARPA funding. 2 of those homes are in District 1. One's on, I think, Carver, and one's on Calumet, and then third home on Ross in District 2, I believe. The imagery that we put in the packet really gives people a perspective of what some of our homeowners and renters are working with when it comes to their flooring and HVAC and kitchen issues. And I'm excited to leverage these federal dollars to support these homeowners and folks that need a lift, and we're glad to do it. So I feel like that's worthy of a highlight.
Thank you, Bradley. I was going to comment, and I was going to thank Galen Price for putting these pictures of 071, 2502 Ross, and so that we can, well, I liked all the pictures, but so we as council members can see where our money is going to and why, because we're asked those questions when we're out in the community. And so I just wanted to thank Galen for putting those pictures in so we can say, yeah, they needed the help and we were glad to do it. So I was going to thank Galen and thank you, Bradley, and staff for executing these programs and getting them out into the community where these homes really need, owner-occupied homes that really need to be worked on. And these are not rental properties. I don't think they are. I think I've always heard that they were homeowner occupied. So that helps our folks, and so that our folks also know where their money is going, and it was much needed. So thank you for that. Galen, wherever you're at, thank you. Where are you at?
Just behind.
Front left. I couldn't see him either. He's down there.
Thank you, Galen, from District 2. Thank you.
And I'll just echo my council member sentiments. First, apologies for being tardy. Meetings that just won't end. Earlier, and we've talked for a very long time about the deficit that we have in this city for housing. But it's not just homes that don't exist. It's homes that are in various state of disrepair. And the fact that, we as a council, under the direction of our management and directors, very intelligently decided to use federal funds to beef up this program. We've had it, but we put some oomph behind it. And that is changing lives. We're trying to get the word out as fast as we can. I mean, I know the money does have an end, but I know that it's become a priority for us to try to solve the problems in ways that we can. And this is a very strategic way to do that. It's kind of a no-brainer. You know, you have your home, you own your home. There are assets to help you better that home, repair that home, because we do have older inventory homes that by virtue of just their age could be a danger to the people who live in them. And so the fact that we're utilizing these funds to promote better health, promote better wellness, but also insert a greater sense of pride in neighborhood community, because we can give you a little help in fixing it and making it better. So I echo the sentiments of Councilmember Rodriguez, and thanks for the diligence and direction of staff. I encourage everybody who is here in this room, here on the internets, know people in Waco, tell everyone you know who may be in that number that fit the requirements for this to apply for it. Because does us no good for that money to sit there. It needs to be utilized, so that way, bless you, so that way we can improve our housing stock. If those are things that need to be then sold, that is someone else who would have a home. So this is really smart work, and I'm grateful.
I really appreciate the strategic communication efforts that have been deployed so far. I know that there's been a lot of targeted marketing towards this, and to just echo what council members have said, it's a really important program and a resourceful deployment of federal funds, and I agree. Let's keep getting the word out that this is available, and it's a great way to revitalize housing stock in the core of our city and all over our city. So it's great.
Yeah, definitely appreciate those comments from council and Galen's help in this. I know Deidre and I, Deputy City Manager Emerson and I have been talking about telling a couple of stories of rehabs and people the lives, because it is people that are impacted positively, and also, frankly, bragging on the work of Galen and other departments that are walking blocks, that are knocking on doors, that are meeting people in parks and having conversations like this, meeting people where they are, English and Spanish both, and just trying to get the word out. So I appreciate the plug from both council members on it and mayor, because we don't want to let that money sit and linger. We want to get people's homes in great condition so they can enjoy and fully participate in the workforce and have healthy lives, and having a roof over your head helps you do that.
And if I may add one more thing, Bradley, when we fix a house in a neighborhood, it seems like it's a ripple effect. Everybody else starts wanting to fix their house up, and if it's not just their house, but their yards, their lawns, and what have you, but it's a ripple effect. So it's not just that one particular house and that one particular street. It affects everybody.
Agreed. Pebble in a pond. That completes, Mayor, my report. I did want to highlight there's 3 ordinances, all second readings, but I'll take any questions from the council at this time.
Any questions for Bradley? All right. The consent agenda includes resolutions 2024-62 through 80. Are there any items council would like to remove? If not, go ahead.
I don't know that I want to remove it, I just know that I have a question.
Okay.
We've got a resolution on the upcoming May election. And I know there's some questions that I have regarding, I believe that, and I know this is a county thing, it doesn't have anything to do with us per se, but I think that rate of pay has changed for election workers, and my concern is that with a decrease in pay, it may make it harder to hire election workers. And so I kind of want to get with, and I mean, if that's a you thing, Michelle, or Bradley, to get with Jared about that, because I just want to, of course, yes, we'll pay the people so that we can have an election. Yes, of course. However, I do have some concerns that that may skew, because we've had the legislation increase the number of polling places, and so, but I mean, money talks, and that is a concern for me. So it's not necessarily that I want to pull it, I just want to make sure that there's some attention brought to it.
Thank you for that, Councilmember. But I also had, I was going to say something about 063. I'm glad that they put more polling places in District 2. There are a couple of more, 2 or 3 more places that the last election, people had to travel quite a distance. And so now, and I think I've complained to somebody at county that there just wasn't, I mean, there just wasn't enough polling places, and I was looking at, and they added several polling places, but cut the pay, but anyway, our people can go, whether it's one person that gets to that polling place, whatever, that's most important for people to know that the polling places are there at their convenience, so they can go and vote and not use the excuse that I have too far to go, so I didn't go vote, or it wasn't in my area, and all kinds of excuses. But this is, I just wanted to thank whoever did this. Thank you for adding those extra polling places in District 2, South Waco. Not just District 2, but South Waco.
And you didn't complain, you just voiced your concerns. That's all
Well,
that was.
okay.
And Michelle, thank you for assuring that our voters had the opportunity to cast their ballots on Sunday. I know that there have been some times where Sunday voting had been terminated within McLennan County, and I'm glad to see that back because it is imperative that we offer every opportunity for the people of our community to vote.
So yes, Councilmember Bearfield, we will check into that for you and get you a response. And we want to say thank you to City Manager Ford, who advocated for a voting site in District 2.
Thank you. Thank you, Ford. I knew there was somebody I had to thank, besides county, complaining to county.
That's right.
Thank you, Bradley.
Consent agenda will include resolutions 2024 262 through 2024 80, with the exceptions of 67, because I filed an affidavit of substantial interest, and 68, because Councilmember Boardroot has filed an affidavit of substantial interest. The next item on the work session is, the next item on the agenda is the work session. Bradley, would you please introduce the first work session?
Sure, we have work session 2024-047. It's a discussion of Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC's system improvements. I'd like to invite Michael Baldwin to the table and anybody else that's with him. We'll love to have you from the Encore team. They're here to give an overview of new power line placement within the downtown core and surrounding areas, as well as have a discussion about placement of substations, which is a follow-up to prior zoning items that the council had requested late last year. And thank Michael for being here. And Michael, if you don't mind just introducing the Encore team for us and those that you got here, we'd appreciate it.
You bet, I'll be happy to. My name is Michael Baldwin, South Region Manager, Encore office here in Waco. And so thank you, Mayor, Council, for the opportunity to address you today. Joining me today are Andrew Tolliver with Burns McDowell Engineering. He's going to be discussing some distribution lines we're proposing that will go towards downtown from our Mary Avenue substation. And then also joining me are Jaron Taylor, attorney with Vincent Elkins, and Michael Stevens, Encore Senior Manager of Distribution Planning, and they're going to be discussing our substation strategy in Waco. So, but just to just again, thank you for that opportunity. And I guess we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Andrew.
Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is Andrew Tolliver. I'm designing the distribution feed to come out of the new Mary Avenue substation. If I just click, will this? Yes, okay. All right, so just a brief overview. So downtown Waco is currently served by the Waco East substation at Martin Luther King Boulevard and I-35 via the recently installed underground crossing of the Brazos River. So with the new Mary Avenue substation, this will enable them to offload the Waco South, Colonial, and Waco East substations and provide backstand capabilities to downtown Waco. Bringing these two new feeders into downtown will improve system reliability and serve for future growth needs in the downtown area. So just a brief overview so everyone understands what I'm talking about. So when I say single circuit line, that'll be the photo on the left. That's going to be a pole with 1 cross arm and 4 conductors. Double circuit line would be a pole with 2 cross arms and 7 conductors. And then the H-frame structure is there on the right is a 4 conductor structure. So the original design plan item, so if you look in the kind of bottom left there at 25th and Franklin area, that's that new Mary Avenue substation location. So the plan was to bring 2 new feeders up, one along Franklin and one along Washington Avenue. So currently along Franklin Avenue, there is an existing single circuit 3-phase line that runs between 26th and 18th. And then from 18th on to, I believe it's 12th Street, would be new build of a single circuit 3-phase line. In that new build portion, the plan is to repurpose the existing street light circuits, so replace the ornamental lights with a distribution pole with LED light on that. Yep, and then kind of the same thing along Washington Avenue, there's an existing single-phase line, so they'd upgrade that to a single circuit 3-phase line up to 18th, and then new build from 18th down to the downtown corridor would be a single circuit 3-phase line. And we've been asked to look at some alternate options to keep it off of Franklin or Washington Avenue, so we started looking at proposing the overhead lines through the alleyways in between those lines. This is kind of a broad overview. We'll get into detail in the next slides here. So this is for the option, or for the feeder that's proposed to go along Franklin. Option 1 would be to repurpose or to rebuild the existing line in the alley between Austin Avenue and Franklin Avenue. This is going to be kind of difficult because a lot of those structures are H-frame structures, and there's currently not a standard to build an H-frame structure which helps you gain those clearances to the buildings. So we'd have to go back with the standard double circuit framing, which would cause us to have to get easements to, and then we'd still have a lot of concerns about maintaining clearances to those existing buildings. And kind of the same thing along the alley between Mary Avenue and Franklin. There's buildings, like that alleyway does not go all the way through, and there are buildings that kind of basically cut the alleyway, so we can't build between 18th and I think it's 14th, so we'd have to extend the new build along Franklin regardless up till we can get back to the alleyway. And because of the way that the buildings and the signage off hanging the building is, that would require underground. And kind of the same thing, this is the option, or alley options that would go for the Washington feeder. So option 1 would be the alley between Austin Avenue and Washington Avenue. Again, there's a lot of H-frame structures that we'd have to rebuild with the double circuit standard, which would require easements. There's a lot of concern again with the building overhang, and similar to that, option 2 would be the alley between Columbus Avenue and Washington Avenue. And here, the existing lines do not go all the way through, and there's also, I believe it's, I'm not sure what kind of building, but the existing line stops, and then there's a building that the alleyway does not go all the way through, so we would have to reroute up to Columbus Avenue and wrap back around to get to the existing alleyway to tie into where we need to tie. From the last meeting, we were asked to also explore going up Columbus Avenue. So with this option, we'd still be repurposing the existing line between 25th and 18th Street, and then we'd cut up to Washington Avenue and build a new single circuit, or 3-phase single circuit line. This is pretty clean route, but again, there's a lot of historic buildings. There's the 4th Avenue Baptist Church building, it's 4 stories that we were concerned we might have to dip underground there. And outside of that, next slide. So with these different options, there's different costs that would be passed on to the city for the underground work. For Mary Avenue 3, this is the line along Franklin Avenue. For the original design, it's estimated to be 0 cost to the city. Option 1 along Franklin and Austin Avenue, upgraded to double circuit, would be 0 cost to the city. And option 2, alleyway between Franklin and Mary Avenue, would be about $2.9 million for 1,000 feet of underground between 18th and 16th Street. And Mary Avenue 4 feeder, that's the one along Washington Avenue. So the original design, there'd be 0 cost to the city. Option 1 in the alley between Washington and Avenues, an estimated cost of $2.9 million for 1,000 feet of underground between 8th and 6th Street. Option 2, alley between Columbus and Washington, $2.6 million for 900 feet of underground between 9th and 8th. And then option 3 would be the new build along Columbus Avenue with the estimated cost to 0 to the city. Questions?
on this. I think that from my vantage point, the complicating thing is like, obviously, in my mind, the fewer power lines exposed to the general public, the better. We definitely want to try to find a way to have fewer exposed power lines. Frankly, in this corridor, there's a ton of exposed power lines already, and adding to that is not ideal for our citizens who are trying to make downtown Waco look more beautiful. I think that it's just going to be a discussion that we're going to have from a budget perspective because obviously I think it's ideal to put power lines in the alleyways where we're able to conceal those from the public, but it's also a cost, and we just need to have a budget discussion with our staff, I think, on where does that fit into the prioritization and what gets taken off the table if we do that. But I do think from a philosophical perspective, the fewer exposed power lines that we can have in the city, the better. I appreciate Encore's work to try to create some options for us. One question I have is, if you go back to any of those maps, just any of them. Good. And it looks like, and I don't know that. That y'all explored all options of because some of these other streets south of Washington and Austin, I'm going to say south, I don't know if you want to say, maybe you say east, southeast, is more industrial. Were there alley options there that were explored, or did y'all just explore the alleys between Austin and Washington?
Thus far, just the ones that we discussed here. Main thing was getting back to the tie points that we need. So we'd be deviating significantly the further south or north we need to go to get to where we need to go. Because
Okay.
we need to tie in at Franklin and I think it's 12th Street. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here.
Well, I was just wondering if instead of going 3 blocks to the northwest, going 3 blocks to the southeast, did y'all explore that as options? And again, I say that just because that's kind of a bit more of an industrial zone along that trajectory, and just didn't know if that I was driven and looked at to try to identify what the ability there was. I'm not even sure if that's the right route, but I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, we can look at that. I think we did preliminary, just kind of drop down, and it didn't seem viable at the time, so we didn't pursue it, but I can look further into that.
I think I'd be curious to know if, again, downtown is transitioning, and I think at some point it's all there's not going to be kind of an industrial sectors, but if there's alleyways in that direction, I'd be curious to know the viability of that as well, and just be curious to know if there's a pathway there. But I think both on the street and in the alleys, going in that direction, same distance, same kind of square blockage. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Question. You mentioned, Andrew, earlier that some of the buildings along the alleyways were cutting into the alleyway. Help me understand what that means.
Basically, the face of the buildings kind of basically butt the alleyway. So the pole is kind of more or less up against the building, and then it's on that H-frame structure, so it spans over, and that way with the H-frame, you're able to maintain the clearance to the buildings. But when we have to go to the standard double circuit framing, it'll be on a single pole on the arms, which will then have to be a really tall pole, and then you're going to have power lines overhanging those buildings, which is not desirable.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, help me understand that.
Because it's the back of the building.
It's the back of the,
It sounds like
so,
it's the back
yeah,
of the
I
building.
mean,
Back it up to that slide that shows that, I think you may have an H-frame.
Yeah, actually, yeah, see
Yeah, there you
here
go.
how the picture on the right, so the poles are kind of spanning over the alleyway, but then the conductors are running through the middle on that or the cross arm or the cross beam of that structure, which keeps the conductors away from the buildings. But in this scenario, say we put a double circuit pole and it was on the left, all the conductors on the arms and everything are going to be above the building, overhanging. So if anything ever happened, that power line could potentially fall on that building.
so is that not allowable to do that, or are you choosing to Is that, you're unable to do that or not recommending that?
That I didn't quite catch.
You're
the question.
not, you're not recommending that or unable to do that?
There's NESC requirements, so it's really a requirement not to.
If they were working on top, if they were standing on top of the building and working, you've got to have clearance from the top of the building, from the electric line. And so we wouldn't have proper clearance.
Okay. I mean, because I don't know if this is where you're going, Councilmember Bearfield, but like, again, even if it's above the building from an aesthetic perspective, that wouldn't bother me if it's behind the building. If that's a way to save money and get it in the alleyway, it seems like it would be a compromise. Have y'all vetted that out to be certain that it's illegal?
Yeah, NESC, there's vertical and horizontal requirements. So we can meet the vertical, but it's going to have to be a really tall pole.
I mean, I think that would be worth exploring and maybe visually demonstrate like what that might look like for us, because again, just as we're like having to stack up our options, if we could avoid you're saying that would allow us to avoid burying then?
Potentially.
Okay. I'd be curious to see what that would look like, because again, if we're having to make a series of decisions here and want to spend $2.9 million that we might not have or choose not to spend, or put it in the front, or have really high poles in the alley, I'm not saying that that third option wouldn't be one we would want to consider. I don't know if it's right or not. I think we want to look at it, though. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Councilmember.
I mean, that's it. I mean, in the, we have worked, this council, previous councils have worked so hard in revitalizing downtown. We're about to take a whole nother scope of revitalizing downtown, and adding to visible power lines is just not cool. I think we have to find a better way to do that in a way that is not cost prohibitive for us as a city. I mean, we did manage to bury lines up under the Brazos recently. So I think that there are certainly ways.
Thank you guys for your partnership on.
Yep. We appreciate that partnership because you know and understand what we're trying to accomplish here for our residents and our citizens. I'm looking at you, Councilmember Ewing, because you engage and interact with the business owners in your district regularly, and I'm trying to think, would it be an issue for them with the power lines? I mean, in the back, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, in the conversations I've had leading up to this point, putting power lines behind the buildings typically is not going to be as big of an issue. The only snafu you could run into there is some have expressed if there are any plans for future development and they're running right along or right beside where the building is, it could just open up a can of worms there if they needed to do any sort of expansion upwards or backwards, which is just a facet of the fact that the alternative is spending $3 million to bury them. So it is what it is. But in terms of the act of putting them behind the buildings, it is certainly preferable to having them run along the streetscape in the front, for everyone that I've talked to. And if you're done, I did have just one other question for the gentleman here. Would you foresee any additional cost remotely comparable to the cost of burying if we were to need that aforementioned extremely tall pole?
I'll have to defer to Encore for that.
We would have to, we'd have to have our engineering look at it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Follow up on Councilmember Ewing's question. We don't have any estimates of what the burying costs. I'm assuming it's going to be like 10x or something. It's going to be very expensive.
It would be very expensive, yes.
But you can still estimate that for us? Right?
I can have them, I can come back or provide that to city staff. I don't.
Because I feel like 10x, but maybe it's only 2x. I don't know.
Well,
Or 1.5x. Not sure.
Well, it's really difficult after the fact to go back in and to put it underground. And then again, we'd have to more than likely secure easements as well. So, but we can look at that.
My last question is the logic behind the delta in the cost The reason it doesn't cost anything just to do it the way where it is, I guess there are already poles there that we can use, or why is the difference so great by putting it in the?
Councilmember Holmes, are you referring specifically to the zero estimated cost to the city to the jump into the $2 and almost $3 million cost? Great.
Yeah.
So the answer,
You didn't ask.
No, I was confirming.
the answer to the delta there, it's not that it costs zero to install it above ground. It's that that is a standard service under Encore's tariff. It is, that's really the difference. It's not that the number is zero to make the construction, it's that it is not on the city's responsibility because it is a standard utility service provided under the Encore tariff. Undergrounding is not, hence the cost delta that is looked for from the city.
Yeah, I'm not talking about underground. I'm talking about the delta between alley and front, I guess.
Right.
But even the same, the standard is to provide service along main streets? I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between, not the underground, not the burying, but the front and the back.
I think, let me just, I think with the reason that the cost jumps up to move it to the alley is because there's aspects in the alley where you would have to bury it.
Correct.
It's not
Correct.
moving it to the alley, that's where's the increased cost, but there's some, and that's what we were kind of talking about a second ago of like, are you sure you can't actually, you really have to bury it in all the alleys, or could you actually raise it up higher there to hopefully reduce some of where we're burying it? And my understanding is y'all are gonna evaluate that a little more to see what that would actually look like and be like. So that's where that cost comes up, is in burying. Their analysis said that if we put it in the alleys, we're gonna have to bury it sometimes, and that is gonna then increase the cost. That make sense?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and a lot of that was because in some places that alley does not continue on, so there's buildings, so we would have to bring it out to say Washington and if
Yep.
the preferences does not have overhead, we would be required underground.
Yeah, I think that third option, I think will be helpful for us to evaluate and see, and maybe maybe it even just reduces the cost because you're not burying it as often then. Any other questions on this part of the presentation?
No other questions. I just wanted to thank you guys for the answers there. That was really helpful.
Yeah, one more that I think might be helpful. There's a timeline associated with, y'all are on kind of a timeline here. What was that? Did I miss that in the presentation, or you may have said it, I missed it?
You bet. It's summer load, so that's what we're
Summer
concerned
load.
about. So we do have to have this completed by summer.
So we've got, we're definitely on, and I know Michael, he's been responsive to us on this, as Councilmember Ewing says. As he gets back to us, I'll have to put it in front of y'all pretty quick to be responsive to Encore's timeline.
We didn't have, there was nothing on, this is just presentation today. We weren't making any decisions today anyway, right? Okay.
Well, maybe you can explore some of those other questions that we had, and we'll be prompt to evaluate our budget with our staff and be ready to move forward as quick as we can. I know you guys are juggling a lot in terms of trying to get power to our residents, and that part we appreciate. We're just trying to move forward in the right direction and know that there's still a lot of lines that, frankly, I'd love to be buried that exist currently, and
Right.
so I want to keep it going in the right direction. So.
Right.
Understand that. This one will be a little easier discussion. I think this is our Circle Point substation that will be at J.J. Fluellen. We have to get a distribution line down MLK Junior Boulevard going towards Lakeshore Drive. Currently in the red, just kind of above the mayor's head there, we have some dots. That's a proposed three-phase distribution line. Currently, we have a streetlight circuit that's in place right now. It's overhead. So we'll just be changing out poles and installing 3 conductors instead of a single conductor. Then we'll be crossing the river. At the river, we'll have 2 poles on each side to get across the river. This is kind of a drawing of kind of what that would look like. And then we'll continue on past, this is the nursing home or senior adult living center that's just beyond the river. And then the line will continue towards Lakeshore. And this is kind of just a drawing just to show there's an existing 3-phase line already there. We're just going to be putting larger wire. It still won't look anything different than any major road that you go through in Waco where we've got 785 conductor. And then it will continue on to Lakeshore. We'll cross Lakeshore, and then along Steinbach Bend Road, we've got an existing line that we're going to tie into on the south side of Steinbach Bend. And this is going to tie this circuit into our customers that go into China Spring. So it just makes that circuit complete so that we can backfeed if we've got an outage issue that direction, or we can come back. So JJ Llewellyn is really essential to tie in more of Waco and our customer base from a reliability standpoint. But it's nothing really new. It's just a different pole. I mean, wood pole still, but it'll have a cross arm and 3 wires instead of a single conductor. Okay. So do you have any questions on that? Go backwards, sorry. Okay, with that, I want to pass this down.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Michael mentioned, my name is Jaron Taylor. My goal today is to try and provide you all some visibility into our substation planning process as to why we site substations where we do, the rules that we have to comply with. As you guys are aware, Oncor is a fully regulated utility in the state of Texas, meaning we have massive rules that exist both in state law and in your administrative code for the Public Utility Commission of Texas as to how we do the business of providing electric service in the state. On the board right now, we kind of show you the distribution of stations in the city. The location of those stations are driven by several different variables. It's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, or 4, but I'm going to try and talk through the general things that come up over and over as we talk through about station siting. These are the approximate locations of stations here today that serve the city of Waco generally. I would also add that service extends from these stations commonly very long distances. In fact, if we go back to the feeder map, if you see, here's the Belmead station. That's located outside city limits of Waco, but as you can see, the feeders actually serve large amounts of the city of Waco, even though the station is located outside up into the north a little bit. That same general layout would exist for each of these stations that we're showing here. They spider out and they work together as a cohesive whole. The reason for that is so that when you have a problem somewhere on your distribution feeder network, you can provide support, like tagging in your buddy WWE style, to come into the ring and help. That's how a distribution network needs to work. You need to have the ability, both from a capacity standpoint in the substation and a reach to be able to get the power to where it needs to go, so that when you lose an element of your distribution system, you can tag that buddy in a different station, can provide service. When it comes to the location of Oncor substations, this is true in the city of Waco, but it's really true of everywhere across North and Central Texas that is served. I've grouped these into 3 different items. You could group them many different ways. Number 1 is suitability of the site for construction. Can we physically build a substation in that location? Is it free of encumbrances? When we're talking about substations, there can be nothing underground. Commonly in Texas, we've got water lines, sewer lines, and more importantly, we natural gas lines and oil pipelines that are pervasive due to our industry here in Texas. We can't have those on the location of a station, so you have to have an area that you can build on. 2, it has to be out of a floodplain. We don't build substations in areas that flood for obvious ramifications of what happens when it actually does flood. You have to have feeder paths. You have to be able to get the power out of the substation and distribute it to the areas that need it. So just as Michael was walking through a minute ago, all these different areas where we need to get feeders through the downtown Waco area, same analysis when we're doing a new substation. How are we going to get the power out? Like he was just walking through the new feeders that'll exit off of MLK and go up Lakeshore from the new Circle Point station. The second major consideration, the way I've grouped them, is load considerations. Where is the load? And when I say load, I'm talking about people who need to consume energy. Where is the load located and what type of load is it? There are really 2 different types of loads. I would break those into. There are what I would call large point loads, meaning a single consuming entity that needs a large amount of power. Think a hospital. Think of some type of a data center. Something like that, some type of entity, maybe a manufacturing facility. not heavy manufacturing, but something that's going to consume a large amount of power in a very small location. That's a point load. The second is just general load growth. I mean, I lived in Waco 20 years ago, and I kind of drove up to the apartments I used to live today when I got to town. There's 4 new apartment complexes along that path, 2 new hotels. That's general load growth. That is just load growth that is developing. Every one of those is a consuming entity. You have to have the ability to serve that capacity as your city develops. Proximity to load is important. Point loads require the substation where you transform power from a high voltage to a service voltage to be very close. As you extend distribution service from a substation, the voltage on that line will drop. And so if you have a large load, something that consumes a lot of power, it has to be very close to the substation. So the type of load can drive how far away from the substation that load can be. And the last one, which in a lot of times turns out to be the driving force behind substation location, is proximity to transmission lines. If you look at the graphic we've got up on the board here, those are the Oncor transmission lines that are coming through your area. Every one of those stations is served by a transmission line. That is out of necessity. What a substation fundamentally does is it takes voltage from either 138 kV or 69 kV, and it converts it down to 25 kV or 12.5 kV, whatever it is that runs across those distribution feeders. So proximity to an existing transmission line is really imperative. If you do not have proximity to an existing transmission line, you have to build a new transmission line to the area to establish the new substation. Michael and I were talking about when we got here this morning, a new project we just did up in the city of Princeton. It was exactly this type of a project. We had to build a 138 kV line 4 miles through the middle of that municipality to put a new load serving substation in that city to be able to serve their growth south of the town. Here we have transmission lines that kind of circle the city of Waco that allows these substations to be served from those locations, but that's kind of your third major point of you have to have a substation to be able to transform the power. And if there's not a transmission line, you have to go through a regulatory process at the Public Utility Commission of Texas to get approval to build that transmission line. And that is a complex process. It takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 months, and it also has a lot of alternative analysis to it, meaning if we want to build a new transmission line to establish a new substation in a location, I have to show the Public Utility Commission that there is no alternative where I can do that in a cheap, more cost-effective, cheap is a bad word in the electrical industry, but a more cost-effective means of doing that, meaning there isn't existing infrastructure there already that I could be pulling that power from. So those are just general factors that go into how we site stations and how this process works as we're trying to plan for a growing municipality such as y'all's. Any other questions? Happy to go into more detail, but I kind of wanted to run through that as a high level.
I think that makes sense. I think that what we're trying to do is really understand how we can strike this balance of ensuring that a growing city has access to power and not look like it's wrapped in barbed wire. And when you pull into Waco right now and see McLean Stadium, it looks like it's wrapped in barbed wire. And that's unfortunate. And so I think that there's obviously roles that the city can play, and we're gonna have to pay to play sometimes. If we want it to be a beautiful city, then there's an obligation for us. But I think our expectation and what we're trying to figure out is how do we work with you guys to ensure that y'all are bringing the best game you can to make it beautiful, and get creative with us on how to do it in the most cost-effective way possible. So again, I understand the position you're in is we're a growing city and we got to get power to people, and we're just trying to figure out how to do that in a balanced and best way.
Jaron or Darren?
Jaron with the J.
Okay. Thank you for the information. I do have a couple of questions. You know, we just recently did the Circle Point substation in my district, which made I don't know if it was the fifth or the half in District 1. And my questions are, about your, in determining, you mentioned some of the things that were determinants of how you put substations, where you put them. You know, we're all forward thinkers here. So as we begin to plan for the future, I'm curious, is it, your location, are they chosen in a, like, representative where the growth is in a community? Is it just about land availability? Is it just about it being cost effective? Or what? I mean, because we're running out of land. I mean, land is the only thing that they're not making any more of. And as cities develop and grow, then those are houses, those are homes, those are neighborhoods, those are people. And, it is a little bit of heartburn for folks to be like, yep, I'm living right across the street from a substation. But we understand the necessity of it, because we cannot run the city. City Hall can't happen. These council meetings can't happen without power. And we know that we have to get power to people everywhere. So I'm kind of wondering what is the planning, as far, and how far out do y'all look as far as time and planning on where, the next substations are? How do you begin to know when the loads are being burdened so that they need someone to, quote unquote, tag them in? Tell me how that works.
So, thank you for the question. So we do our forecasted planning up to 10 years out. We do try to work with our partners, both in the cities, the economic development, and others, to identify the locations as far in advance as we can. As y'all are well aware, some of the plans are less settled the farther out you get. And so until those plans are firmed up by the customers that we're trying to serve, both the residential subdivision developments, as y'all were talking earlier in your meeting, the growth that those are having, the customers that are looking to come in the area, to where they are at a point to where they can provide some certainty that they are going to build their facility or going to complete those items, then our plans firm up at the same time. We do try to be proactive, but we do our best to not have stations or expenses that are completed that do not materialize into actually serving the customers that they were planned to. And so we try to use best planning practices and try to work very closely with our partners, and we appreciate the support of economic development councils and those, and to get us the information ahead so that we have the best information. But really, that planning horizon really starts to take shape in the 2, 3, 4 year window, that it really materializes into something that can provide some actionable information, like approaching y'all. Because as y'all are aware, in some of the economic developments, they are looking at multiple sites, and that until they firm up to those single sites or anything else, it's hard to firm up where that substation location would be. On the Circle Point substation, that is serving multiple items, and so some of that is the load growth in the Belmead area. And so while we are not directly next to it, we are supporting the entire area with that substation, the residential development, the reliability for that area, both in the China Springs area and that Brazos area, the kind of bend in the Brazos there, to support those customers reliably, but also to provide support for the entire area. And so looking at just a geographic map of where we sited that substation, we look at the Belmead substation, we look at the Waco East substation that currently serve those, and where the transmission lines are, and where, as Jaron was talking, how do we get the distribution facilities out? And it really narrows down to the current the locations that were discussed for Circle Point. About that is the optimal area to build it, that is cost effective and provides the reliable support to all the people that need it.
So in the footprint of District 1's substations, I know that For instance, I'm sure the ones that are in the Belmead area, because I kind of touch that area, are powering some heavy users, because there are several, the Pilgrims is out there, I mean, you've got big plants that are being serviced there. And I assume with the onboarding of Circle Point, you were mentioning it stabilizes reliability. So help me understand what that means regarding like outages.
So for instance, yes, you're exactly correct that there are some large customers in the Belmead area directly. But as we showed on the map of those feeders, some of the feeders there extend beyond those customers into the Waco area and into other areas. And so from a reliability standpoint, we are providing them a separate source. And so now if, for example, a car hits a pole, they have a better located source to restore their power quickly while those repairs are going on.
Because they can then go take power from Circle Point.
Yes, and vice versa, that if a car was to hit a pole along MLK Boulevard or something there, that they could be fed temporarily from Belmead Substation. And so that they provide mutual assistance with each other, and then that allows the area of focus for any substations that we are planning in the Belmead area to take care of them well, because these in this Waco area are being taken care of by the Circle Point substation. And so it's kind of a geographic area that we're trying to narrow those geographic zones to better serve the customers there while also serving the other customers.
So, and I'm not going to step on Mayor Pro Tem Holmes' toes, but I noticed that in the District 5 has so few, and it is a tremendous area of growth. I mean, 3 is probably the most rapid growing area right now, if I believe, but I think 5 is pretty close as far as new owners. Are there plans for that? Or because I clearly understand District 4, you've got all the other things feeding you. And if the spider veins are doing what spider veins do, I can understand why there would only be one there, because you are kind of surrounded by sources. But, how are we planning for the area of growth in District 5, and I'm going to say probably the 84 way on the way to McGregor, or does that become a different county issue? I mean, I'm confused, because I want to make sure that as we plan, we're doing so strategically in a way that is beneficial for you, because you are the service provider, but as we have to make sure that the people who we represent are getting the best that they can, and service as long as, because it's nothing worse than being without power. It's nothing worse. Everybody has experienced it. It's not something that anybody has not. And so, the only thing I'm asking these questions for is to say, how can we make, we can't ensure that it happens less, but if we're gonna, be putting things that, lines and affecting, the beauty of the city and fundamental structure of our neighborhoods, that we're getting the most that we can.
Yes, no, I understand. And for this, I'm going to divide District 5 into north of the lake and kind of south and east of the lake. North of the lake in that China Springs area, we are seeing residential growth, and some of those, and this Circle Point substation is there to help that. One of the challenges with that area is there are not very many transmission lines. We do have a transmission line a little bit farther to the west in the China Springs area, but that is the only one located in that area. And so it would require an extension, which would potentially be that CCN proceeding Jaron was speaking of, to bring an additional transmission source into this northern part.
And that's what you have to go to the PUC for? Yes. Okay.
And for this southern area of District 5, we are seeing a lot of growth in that area, both in the residential growth in the District 3 area is pretty extreme. And we have had some substations and some planned in that area, and because of the geographic boundaries between Waco and Hewitt and and some of the other areas. The substation itself may not fall within Waco, but we are building them down there. And that they are,
Hi, feel free.
and also in that McGregor area, we are also building some in that area, but the same exists for the location of the transmission lines. And you see the circle just to the west of the Woodway dot, that is a substation there, and we have a couple of recently built substations in the McGregor area as well to serve the large loads that are going there.
I can't
And-
imagine what that would be.
And so we are building in those, at least a couple of substations down there as well. And down in that Hewitt area, I believe we built one a couple of years ago, and we have one or two more planned. I do not believe they fall specifically in the Waco city map, but that's
Again, feel
because
free.
of the geographic, or jagged kind of city lines that are down
Still
there.
the spiders, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think I may speak on behalf of the whole council that feel free to build these substations in adjoining communities that serve Waco.
Any other questions or comments?
Are you going over the last two slides yet, or has that already been subsumed in the discussion?
I think we've covered them, frankly, but we can just shoot through them real quick. This is
Okay,
just providing a,
Okay, I have questions specifically about those.
fire away, sir.
Give me the logic behind why we can't use the China Spring one to kind of pull towards the city.
So in that
And
reliability, in
it's
the
China Spring, one spring.
yes, sorry.
Had to say that's my district, got to represent.
So in the China Spring area, we have a substation there, and for those reliability purposes, the car hits a pole scenario, having a single source to an area means that if that car hits a pole and you don't have those alternate sources, then the outage and the reliability could potentially be less. And so building a substation in a separate site and having those mutual ties between both China Spring and Belmead Substation gives that greater flexibility, because instead of having single tie now, because I believe China Spring and Belmead tie, you will now have potential for 3 ties, because China Spring will tie to Circle Point, which will also
I see,
tie
okay.
to Belmead.
Oh, and Bill Meade. So
Yes.
it doesn't feed to MLK at all? I thought that's what,
It will feed down, so, and the spider web approach is that we also segment, so you'll have multiple feeders out of Circle Point Substation. One of them will cross the river immediately and tie into the Belmead and China Spring area that will tie to those, but you'll also have some that are feeding the direct surrounding community, the J.J. Fluellen and some of those area, but then also to the MLK Boulevard area to feed the developments that are going on there. And so it relieves everything within its geographic territory. And you saw, like as we were going through with the Mary Avenue, you had one feeder that they were looking at in the Franklin or Alleys and those, and one that was on the other side in the Washington area. And so having those multiple feeders out of the substation is why having the multiple routes to exit a substation is important.
The only thing I'd like to add to what Michael said real quick is reliability when it comes to an electric system is not just about not having outages. It's also about how long does the outage last when it happens. So as they segment and as they tie those feeders together, you have a tree that comes down and hits a wire and causes a feeder to go out. You can immediately energize it from the opposite side. So when you're sitting at home, you see a blip of the lights and the power comes back on, as opposed to something that you have to wait for a crew to go out there and fix something. That's the other goal of what we're trying to accomplish, is to reduce the outage time.
thank you for that. That is helpful to know and manageable to explain. Lastly, we talked about long-term planning for you all, and looking at the spider webs and how they are right now encompassing our northern neighboring city and the northern part of Waco, would it be safe to assume that any future developments and substations probably would represent or be representative for the more southern part of Waco?
There are substations planned in the southern part of Waco. Have been communications.
Southern-western, yeah.
Yeah, the southern, southwestern, also in the southern areas of Waco, with customers, customer interest. There is the pretty significant residential growth down in the southwestern area, in the District 3 area, that we are supporting as well with those substations we discussed. There have been customers who have approached us in many areas within Waco because of a lot of the good efforts y'all are doing to attract them here. And their loads may justify a substation in the location that they are at.
Yeah.
And depending on where they choose their location to be and how they are, the amount of load they are may necessitate a new substation.
Right, but that would be proximal to their location, not necessarily in a neighborhood that was already established, correct?
Yes, in most cases, there are some redevelopment opportunities that may come up, that have come up in other cities to where they are redeveloping a built-out area that necessitate some creative planning practices to build substations in challenging areas.
Thank you.
I just got to satisfy my curiosity on this last slide. Where are the China Spring is a substation?
Yes.
This is along the lines of my previous question. Where are the transmission lines coming in from there? I guess that was what I was trying to ask.
So those transmission lines belong to another transmission utility. And so to the extent that Oncor can create maps, we can create maps because we agree to showcase our facilities. Without agreement of other utilities posting their facilities in location has some confidentiality requirements associated with it.
So it's a different company that serves that?
Yes.
Okay.
The substation is an Oncor substation, but the transmission line serving it is not an Oncor transmission line.
Okay.
But it is there.
Yes.
It's a bigger circle too.
Yes.
If you were to drive up there, you would see it.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had. Great presentation, Michael and team.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here. I appreciate y'all working with us on this stuff.
Great. Thank y'all. We appreciate it.
All right, Mayor and Council, our next work session, I'm going to invite Executive Deputy Chief Robbie Bergeson to the table up here. We're going to do work session 048. It's a discussion of 2023 Fire Department services, statistics and accomplishments, as well as a look forward into 2024. I'm excited for Chief Bergeson to showcase the work of the men and women of what is just a phenomenal department, and appreciate the council's support of the department and what Robbie and the team get to do every day to serve our residents will show through, I think, in his presentation. So, Robbie, thanks for your time, and get after it.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Executive Deputy Fire Chief Robbie Bergeson, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about the great progress that the Waco Fire Department is making to provide services that, 1, protect life and property when bad things happen, 2, prevent emergencies from occurring, and 3, promote a safe and resilient city. This afternoon, I'll present a report card, if you will, of how we've been performing and where we're headed in 2024. In 2023, the Waco Fire Department experienced some of our highest highs. On April 3rd, we celebrated 150 years of dedicated service to our community, but we suffered one of our lowest lows on August 15th when we received the heartbreaking news that engineer Steve Kroll succumbed to work-related cancer, becoming the Waco Fire Department's 4th line of duty death. We are committed as a department to doing everything that we can to ensure that a tragedy such as this never happens again. The Waco Fire Department will never forget Steve, and we'll never forget his infectious smile. The Waco Fire Department is consistently seeking new ways to respond faster to our citizens when they need us. These accomplishments are the result of the support of this council and management to ensure that we have the best resources, facilities, apparatus, and equipment available to address emergencies. In 2023, we installed the Purvis Fire Station Alerting System at all of our fire stations, which tied into our computer-aided dispatch system that initiates an automated voice over internet protocol for dispatching of emergency calls. This system reduces emergency response times by eliminating several steps in the dispatching process and replaced an outdated radio-based system. We were also fortunate in October to add 11 new firefighter positions. 5 of these positions were earmarked, which brought our authorized strength up to 222 total uniformed personnel. 5 of these new 11 positions were earmarked for Fire Station 15, and 6 were added to our staffing pool. And that allows us to have extra personnel to maintain staffing levels when personnel are off on leaves, vacation, sick, or away at training. It's interesting to note, though, for the first time that any of us can remember, we exhausted our entire eligibility hiring list and left 2 positions unfilled. We've noticed over the past couple of years that the number of applicants for firefighters has reduced, and also the number of people that sign up and then don't show up on the exam day has also increased. We intend to monitor both of these. Now, due to retirements and these 2 vacancies from October, we will be conducting an entrance exam on March 23rd, and by that time, we'll have 7 vacancies. The Waco Fire Department is becoming younger each year. Since 2020, we've hired 55 new firefighters. It's noteworthy that 22% of those are from underrepresented backgrounds, including 5 female firefighters. And while that doesn't sound like a large number of 5 female firefighters, just to give you some context, I was discussing this with a colleague of mine from Irving Fire Department just last week, where they have 409 uniformed firefighters and only 9 females. However, their first one they hired was in 1975. So for us to say that we're making progress in 3 years, I would say that's true, but there's much work to be done. We were also able to order 3 large specialty fire apparatus in 2023, including a hazmat truck, a heavy rescue truck, and a tractor-drawn aerial or tillered ladder truck. These vehicles are replacing outdated equipment, some of which have chronic maintenance issues. I also want to bring to your attention that the fire service is not immune to the long delivery times that have been experienced by other departments in the city. Large apparatus delivery times are now between 620 and 700 days from the ordering date. This creates many challenges for us. Now, while we celebrated with many of you the groundbreaking of Fire Station 15 last month, dirt started to move in December, so we're going to chalk that one up to 2023. But we're very excited to see this station, which will reduce response times in Southwest Waco, and we're very excited because we'll be moving in the first quarter of 2025. Now, this was one of the busiest was the busiest call volume year to date for the Waco Fire Department, but it's not always about the number of calls that we respond to, but rather how we respond to those calls. For example, if you're curious about the photo on the left of the screen of a firefighter vacuuming, on March 31st, 2023, firefighters from Station 1 responded to a vehicle crash on I-35 that turned out to be a rock that was thrown through the window of a vehicle near McLean Stadium, injuring a 4-year-old girl who was struck in the head. The family, who was from Oklahoma, was traveling home. While the little girl was transported to Baylor Scott & White Hillcrest Hospital, the firefighters brought the family's vehicle to the station, retrieved the keys from the hospital, taped the windows for safety, vacuumed out all of the glass, cleaned out the blood, and then reinstalled 3 car seats so that the following day the family could continue on to Tulsa safely and with peace of mind. Going above and beyond for the customer is our culture. The fire service is 100% about helping people, 100% of the time. While we tend to focus on deployment models, response times, training, and many other areas, at the end of the day, we're in the people business. I first want to bring your attention to the yellow bars on this chart, which we look at our response history and overall call volume. The demand for services has gradually increased since a downward trend in 2020 due to COVID-19. The blue bars represent emergency medical responses, which are trending upward and account for over 65% of our calls. This is likely due to an increased population, increased daytime population, and potentially an aging population. The green bars are miscellaneous or other categorized calls that aren't directly coded as fire or EMS incidents in our record system. These include motor vehicle crashes, false alarms, gas leaks, odor investigations, electrical emergencies, lift assist, fluid spills, or even flooded homes due to water line breaks. These calls are indicative of a fire service nationwide, and true here in Waco, that has evolved into an all-hazards response system to solve a multitude of problems beyond their traditional fire responses. Now, the red bars indicate fire calls, and unlike EMS or miscellaneous calls, which are typically handled by 3 firefighters in just 1 vehicle, require a larger response of vehicles and personnel to handle emergencies. This is known as an effective response force, or ERF, which is typically 17 or 23 firefighters, depending on the size of the building that's on fire. While the 600 plus fires annually are a small percentage of what we do, they are the most labor intensive. And for an example, a commercial building fire or an apartment fire requires 40% of our on-duty firefighting personnel and equipment to be sent on the initial dispatch to ensure that adequate resources are on hand to begin operations. A typical ERF, or emergency response force, for us is required to be on scene within 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And we reach that 82% of the time. If you'll notice the large number of fire increases in 2022, I'll explain that fluctuation on the next slide.
On this slide, we've got the yellow bar is the combined total incidents, then the fires are in red, or I guess that's what the colors look like.
Yes, sir.
Or, and then the other, what did you say, what kind of categories are there? It's called out to something that doesn't result in an EMS transport or doesn't result, it wasn't a fire. So what type of incidents would those be? Just to give us a sense of it.
Right, so those are, in our records management, we don't categorize those as fires or medical. So it could be motor vehicle incidents, odor investigations, gas leaks, electrical emergencies.
Guy throws a rock through a car.
Something where like 911 is called.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
y'all are dispatched, so car wreck type things.
Yeah, 911, yep.
Okay.
Fire
Sounds-
monitoring system, alarm goes off, incorrectly, you guys have to go out.
Right, false
like that.
alarms.
Yeah.
Yep, yes, sir.
So that represents a pretty substantial number of what you, or percentage of what y'all do. Thank you.
Quickly, could I ask, you mentioned that the emergency response time, you guys are hitting in the mid 80% for the 10-minute, 20-second response that you deem to be what you're shooting for. Could you give us an idea of how much of that remaining percentage is, if 10-20 is what you guys are shooting for, I can't imagine that the rest of them are 20 minutes. How much of that is within 11 minutes, just barely off the mark there?
I'd have to come back and get you the exact numbers, but you're exactly right. It's typically, we're just missing the mark.
Yeah.
If not. And there's some situations, I can think of at least 2 times in 2023 where we ran out of fire trucks because there was late afternoon lightning storms and we had 3 simultaneous house fires at the same time, which strains resources.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. So a deeper dive into our statistics shows how sometimes events outside of our control, such as weather, affects what we do. As I mentioned, in 2020, The response numbers were down due to COVID-19, yet it was one of the most demanding times in our history as firefighters' roles expanded to include testing and vaccination and assistance in support of public health, as well as responding to emergencies. In 2021, both response times and the number of structure fires increased substantially, mostly due to Winter Storm Uri, which caused, for an example, 31 building fires in 4 days, and an 11-minute average response time during that period. On February 16th of that year, our call volume was 265, or 5 times as many as a normal day. This surge during the freezing temperatures resulted in nearly a month's worth of calls in just 11 days. In 2022, as I mentioned earlier, the spike in fires is actually brush and wildfire activity. It went from 80 to 241, which correlates with the severe drought conditions that we all remember from that year. Every member of the Waco Fire Department plays a critical role in community risk reduction. Prevention efforts are vital to reducing injury and risk in the community. The best emergencies are the ones that we prevent. A great example of public education and personal initiative by someone not assigned to fire prevention is firefighter Jose Estupinan, who as part of his first-year probationary requirements was required to teach a class to other members of the fire department. Firefighter Estupinan took this assignment a step further, and while recognizing a gap in service, designed a class on fire safety in Spanish and began teaching it within the schools of the city, beginning at Kendrick Elementary. This was not required, but rather an example of a member of the lowest rank rising to a leadership role and addressing an important issue to increase safety to the public. Jose is not assigned to Fire Prevention Division and is a great example of how all personnel play a crucial role in reducing risk. Fire inspections and pre-plannings, which are drawings of facilities showing layouts and specific hazards, have reached near post-pandemic numbers with a renewed initiative where fire suppression companies augment and support the fire marshal's office in conducting fire inspections of commercial occupancies. Our goal is to visit each occupancy annually. However, they are prioritized by risk in some situations. Now, plan reviews keep the boom in construction going. Fire alarm systems, fire sprinkler systems, and underground fire mains and other items are required to meet safety standards on new construction and during substantial remodels. While fire codes are not always understood or enthusiastically supported, it's important to note that nearly every code is the result of a tragedy of our past. If you notice, the relatively low number of citations issued is due to our philosophy of education and voluntary compliance with codes versus enforcement. Issuing citations is the last resort for us. The only way we can bring our incident response trends down is through our community risk reduction efforts, in which we will continue to explore and focus on ways to improve and enhance these efforts. Sadly, injuries and fatalities from fire, while relatively low, are unacceptable at any number higher than 0. We view these as a failure of our prevention efforts. Total cardiac arrest, and in particular witness cardiac arrest survival rates, are too low, where a patient is discharged neurologically intact. This is an area we think we can improve moving forward. The final set of these outcomes show the estimated dollar loss and estimated dollars saved at properties that were on fire each year. These numbers are for the actual building that was on fire. However, they do not reflect that if these fires were left unchecked or unextinguished, the adjacent buildings and property would sustain significant damage as well. As you know, the Waco-McLennan County Office of Emergency Management is under the fire department. In 2023, Ryan Durker was hired as the new emergency management coordinator. We had a presidential campaign event for Donald Trump in March that had the potential to be a high visibility and high impact event for Waco. Many city departments and the city manager's office were present in the command post and on-site at the Emergency Operations Center. Because of planning, preparation, and coordination, the event proceeded without incident. One of the primary functions of the Office of Emergency Management is to ensure that the safety of our community through tracking severe weather. The EOC was activated numerous times to monitor approaching severe weather systems and in a few events assist in coordinating a response. These efforts supporting planning for major events such as Celebration and the Ironman races, among others. The City of Waco has made significant investments in the 800 megahertz radio system over the last decade. In 2023, we saw the realization of a significant milestone. Finally, 100% of all public safety organizations in McLennan County are now subscribers to our 800 megahertz system. This allows complete interoperability between all responding agencies in the county. And further, major radio milestones are expected to be completed in 2024. And I can just tell you firsthand, for us responding out into the county, this is very huge for increasing safety of everybody involved. So. In 2024, Emergency Management will be hiring a new Assistant Emergency Management Coordinator and a radio shop supervisor. I believe the interviews for the Assistant EMC begin this week. With advancements in weather tracking technology, the EOC will be upgrading its weather tracking systems. Doing this will allow better predictive and threat analysis and aid us in our efforts to predict, forecast, and warn residents and city employees of weather-related threats. In July of 2023, the City of Waco sheltered survivors of the multi-fatality Northgate apartment complex fire in Lacey Lakeview. We've also sheltered residents of Waco in warming and cooling centers multiple times a year since Winter Storm Uri, and learning each time. Because of these lessons learned, the Office of Emergency Management now operates a three-pronged standardized system for sheltering that includes: 1, the Waco Parks and Rec staff identify a suitable building and handle check-in procedures, as well as daytime securities using park rangers. 2, the Office of Emergency Management has volunteers who have been trained to the Red Cross shelter standard level and are primarily responsible for operating the sheltering component. Overnight security is contracted when needed. And 3, the Red Cross and the Salvation Army now assist with supplies and meals. In 2024, we will continue to improve this process every time we open shelters and/or warming or cooling centers. A long-term goal of the Office of Emergency Management that will continue in 2024 is to engage with the public, private, and faith-based organizations throughout Waco to build community resiliency. In the event of a wide-ranging incident, community members will be mobilized to aid recovery efforts. This yet-to-be-named initiative is the first step towards the goal of a whole community preparedness response. This initiative promotes this council's strategic goal to provide a safe and resilient city. In 2024, we have a full slate ahead of us with many important overlapping projects that we are fully committed to successfully implementing. We look to improve witness cardiac arrest survival rates by enhancing each link of the American Heart Association's chain of survival that we can influence, such as bystander CPR training, rapid defibrillation access, and enhanced resuscitation efforts. Occupational cancer accounts for 73% of firefighter deaths, and we experienced this firsthand this last year. We are currently in the final negotiation of terms and hoping to bring a proposal to council soon to decontaminate our existing firefighting and other vehicles that have been exposed to aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, and their carcinogenic forever chemicals. We are taking a proactive approach so that Engineer Kroll's death was not in vain. We are slated to become one of, if not the first, Federal Aviation Administration indexed airports to switch to fluorine-free foam, or F3, which was just approved for use at FAA airports in September. We look forward to the repair of fire administration from our accident in December. We plan to work with facilities and our architect to complete the design phase of Fire Station 4, which is slated to move to the 800 block of LaSalle, which I just got an updated address last week of 801 LaSalle. So happy to see that. Yeah. Happy to see that project moving along. Construction will be ongoing at Fire Station 15, as well as the promoting of the positions of the staff for the fire station in order to be ready to begin operations on day one of receiving an occupancy permit. We will be having a comprehensive review of the fire department by a consultant of nearly every facet of our organization to identify gaps for improvement. This resolution for work is on this council's agenda, I believe. Every high-performance organization has an established mission, vision, and values to guide it. We are excited to be working with George Mason University to conduct an appreciative inquiry study of our organizational culture to identify shared core values through a participatory process which will help in determining the mission, vision, and values for the Waco Fire Department. There is also still a great deal of work to be done in ongoing tasks towards accreditation. We are currently a registered agency with the Center for Public Safety Excellence, with plans to move into the applicant agency phase, which will invite site visits from CPSE staff and ultimately award accreditation. If you recall, in 2020, we received our ISO Class 1 property protection classification. We are one of 401 of nearly 30,000 fire departments nationwide to receive that designation. There are currently 301 that are fully accredited and only 117 that are both Class 1 and accredited. And that's our goal, to move into that category. And lastly, we are currently in the process of appointing a new Deputy Chief Fire Marshal to replace Kevin Varanek, who retired on January 31st with 28 years of service. And we're also beginning the process of hiring a new fire chief. I'd like to say thank you to this council and management for your overwhelming support over the last several years. On behalf of Interim Chief McGee, I also want to recognize the men and women of our fire department for their efforts and contributions to ensuring safety each day. I have personally been blessed to be a part of this team for 26.5 years and can honestly say that we're in the best position that we've ever been in because of our combined commitment to always seek improvement, but also because of your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chief, for the presentation. Did you say that this year was the first year that all of the emergency organizations were synchronized with the radios?
That's right.
Wow. Wow. I can't imagine how much better it is to be able to communicate, because, I mean, we do service our sister cities that, you know, don't have capacity and that kind of thing. So I'm sure that this reduces time, probably saves lives. I mean, so many more things. So kudos to us, I guess, because, you know, and staff, no, I'm just kidding, and staff for making that happen. I mean, not really. I appreciate also, especially the proactive approach that we're taking for the safety of our fire team, because we can't do anything without those men and women who serve the city and the fire department in that capacity. That is our, because I know, what was it, the washing of the gear, and that was one thing, and then this is something different, correct? what you were talking about?
With the,
For the cancer prevention?
yeah, but this
the
time
foam.
it's with the foam, yes. In the past, you guys have been tremendously supportive of second sets of turnout gear and also the gear
Turnout gear, couldn't
extractors,
think
which
of
is
the
the
name.
washers.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but now the actual foam that we're using is carcinogenic, so we're trying to replace it with a,
Okay, well, I mean, we're committed to that, and so let's see how we can get that done, because safety is a priority.
Definitely, Councilmember. I think, well, it sounds like we're in a race, honestly, to be the first to do that.
Well, let's get it then.
And so, and that's thanks to Bergeson's leadership and the department's leadership. But we stand ready, just like the council, to see that resolution come through, and
Fantastic.
excited to make that change.
Fantastic. And lastly, when will we know when we get the the award? Because I know we're in the process, correct?
we're hoping to get accreditation in 2025.
Very good. Thank you.
Deputy Chief Bergeson, thanks for the presentation. Fantastic, great, good numbers, great presentation. I like the charts and the trends. It's, tells a great story. Public safety is so important. So today we're talking about the fire department, and next we're going to have Chief Victorian and the police department. I did wear the red tie for the fire department, blue for the police. Tried to be thoughtful. Full opportunity here.
Well done.
Anyway, let me go on here. So public safety is so important. So I'm enjoying both of these presentations. Read ahead on the police also. Necessary and fundamental in Waco. It's Waco, Texas, police and fire department. Having the strong departments are so important, and we're achieving these goals and these initiatives that this council is trying to set. 11 new positions in the fire department. Just to summarize, 3 fire trucks, new fire trucks, fire station 15. Great improving response times. And I like the way you said it. We're 100% about helping people 100% of the time. That to me is a great quote there, Chief Bergeson, and it exemplifies what we're getting done in the police department or in the fire department. Also, I like your quote about this is the best position we've ever been in. That warms my heart because I know that's a goal of this council to have the best fire department in the United States. Have a properly equipped and then properly trained and properly led, and I appreciate everything you're doing with the fire department. Thank you.
I also want to say, I'm real excited about being your neighbor on 9th and LaSalle. And I was just wondering, when are we going to start building that fire department there on 9th and LaSalle? Do you know? Do we know, Bradley?
Councilmember, we're in design now, and we hope to begin construction sometime in late '25, probably, for actual turning dirt at that location. But we're in design now.
I keep telling my folks and my neighbors on LaSalle, hey, they're coming, they're coming. I've been saying that now for what, 2 years, I think?
Yeah.
But anyway, we're all excited about you coming. That's going to be fire station, what number?
4.
4. Okay. And I like the way 5 is, it's a beautiful station on Bagby. And I like going by there and seeing that fire station there. And I like to see that the fire trucks are inside. That means there's nothing going on around that they need to leave. So excited about 4 coming to be my neighbor. My office is there on 9th and LaSalle.
Good.
Yeah, Councilmember, we're of course, we've hired a architect and working through that initial scoping process, but I know Chief Bergeson and Ryan are excited to get some updated conceptuals to the council because we committed to you and the council at large to work through a mission-style, Spanish-style architecture.
Yes.
And so I've not gotten a preview just yet of what that looks like, but I am excited to show that off and show how we're
Excited, you're excited.
Yeah, because I think, like with Station 6, we brought something of real value to that corridor, and this feels like the same approach for LaSalle as well. So
Absolutely.
look forward to doing that in the coming months.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I too share enthusiasm for the new Fire Station 4, I guess the relocated Fire Station 4 there onto LaSalle, as well as the one we just broke ground on last month on Ritchie Road and Panther Way. Looking forward to that, reducing response times and hitting those targets. I've appreciated the fire department, our fire department, for years. I know it was a firefighter that helped us learn how to put our car seat in when we first had our first child. So y'all perform so many valuable services to the community, and always grateful for your commitment to excellence and quality service.
Thank you. I'll just add that I agree with everything that's been said, but you know, the scope of what you all do is so vast, and I think that even as intimately aware of it as I am, just hearing all that y'all are doing and all of the needs in this community that I think are well known by, you know, fighting fires, being a first responder, but just again, the scope of all that our fighters do is so important and vast. And when I think of Waco Fire, I think of excellence and dedication. And I had the privilege of being at Steve Kroll's funeral service this year and seeing the camaraderie and sacrifice and selflessness that our entire force has for one another and has for this community was one of the most moving experiences of my life. And I truly do have just incredible gratitude for the daily sacrifice that our firefighters have. And, you know, all we can say is thank you. And again, continue to be supportive with what we are stewarded with, which is helping have a budget that reflects a public safety priority, and continued support vocally and in practicality of the department. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Great job, Robbie.
That it?
That you survived. He says, is that it? You survived Shark Tank. Next up, we've got,
Time he's been before us?
what's that?
Is this the first time you've been before us?
Yes.
Oh, good job.
Yeah.
I wonder he was drinking water a lot.
Yeah, it can feel a little bit like a congressional hearing sometimes. Y'all are much nicer
I was like,
to
you're
us.
not that mean.
No, the setup feels like that, but y'all are much kinder, I would say. But thanks, Robbie, for your time and energy on this, and I would probably clip the commentary from the council and send it out to your firefighters. I think they'd appreciate hearing it. Thank you. Our next work session, we're joined by Chief Victorian on work session 2024-049. It's a similar discussion, a discussion of police department operations, crime statistics, strategies, and updates. Chief has been really excited since about November of 2023, when she knew she could kind of see the trend line on those crime stats. She was excited to come to the council and share how the department's doing related to stats, and also how they're doing to serve the community well with the relational policing strategy. I look forward to hearing from Chief, and at the end I'll provide some commentary on both departments that I hope will be helpful to the council as well. Chief, take us away.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. Good afternoon, council, mayor, and our city manager, our directors. And I'd also like to acknowledge our team. We have members from our team here, executive staff, director of our dispatch team, our PIO, and some of our team from neighborhood engagement team. So I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for their support and them helping me to actually get this together. So today I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you about our staffing, our 2023 year-end overview of crime. We're also going to address response time, talk a little bit about our relational policing efforts, and then some of the collaborations and initiatives that we have going on. So So let's start with staffing. Right now, we have an authorized strength of 292 sworn personnel. We have an actual sworn strength of 262, and we have 11 recruits that are currently in the academy that will be graduating this summer. Last year, I think it's important that we talk about our attrition numbers. We lost 23 individuals, 7 to retirement, 14 resigned for different reasons. I can explain those. One was indefinitely suspended, and one we lost Detective Worsham, end of watch. He's a current employee and passed away. So we lost one. So we have a total of 23 that we lost. A couple of the 14 that resigned, we had one to go to troopers, one went to the Marshals Division. We had a couple to go to ISDs. So for various reasons, individuals left. And then we're talking about our sworn numbers as well. We have 59 that are eligible to just retire today if they were interested in retiring. We do have a civil service exam coming up on March the 2nd. Right now, we have 70 police recruit preliminary applications, and we have 6 for the fast track. Those are individuals that have previous police experience. So we're interested in seeing how many are going to show up on March the 2nd. We're going to increase our recruiting efforts over the next month and make sure that we do some encouraging for those individuals to get the full background package in so that we can move forward. For our dispatch team, that should be, we have an approved staffing and dispatch of 41. So we have 36 full-time employees in dispatch, 4 part-time employees, and then we have the division manager makes up that other one to get us to 41. We actually have 30 right now in dispatch, and again, we just opened hiring for our open dispatch positions. Unfortunately, we get a lot of people that show interest that do not, and then they don't complete the background process, or they're not passing a polygraph for some reason. But our dispatch manager is working really diligently to come up with some strategies so that we can get people in the process that understands the job and they're willing to follow through with the process. And that includes partnering with University High. Just expressed to her that they were interested in actually starting a certification program. And so we would love to have that happen, to have individuals, as soon as they get out of high school, they're certified and can come in and work dispatch for us.
Wonderful.
Chief, have y'all had any success with recruiting licensed peace officers from other agencies or departments within or outside of the state?
Yes. We actually, a couple of those that resigned were individuals that we had recruited from outside of the state, and they ended up going back home. But we are having some success in recruiting individuals who have previous police experience. Yes. All right, so our next numbers, our crime, overall crime rate. The numbers that you have may look a little different. I had an opportunity to update yesterday and decided to do this too, so the numbers can match. The numbers that you're seeing on the screen are the actual number of all crime incidents, right? So all violent crime was down 10.8%. All nonviolent crime was down 14.5%, and overall crime has been down 14.3%.
Wow.
The numbers that you have are the numbers that of the most frequently reported crimes that are, when you go out to our Waco crime stats, those are the numbers that you see. But and that only includes 10 crimes, but this includes all the crimes. So that's why I updated the number. Okay.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, we're going to give comments in a minute, but this is a really important slide, and I hope that this is being circulated in every way that we can circulate this information to our community, because the perception of safety is so important, and to see these huge falling rates is just mission critical. So thank you. We'll celebrate this in a minute. Just want to pause and just acknowledge this and celebrate this, and then also look forward to continuing to get this great news out. Carry on.
Sir, thank you so much. This is just the beginning.
It's better from here.
All right, so violent crime, as you can see, violent crime was down. Here are the actual numbers, 10.8%, but since 2021, violent crime is down 17%, okay? And these include our aggravated assaults, our aggravated robberies, our robberies, sexual assaults, and homicides. And while the statistical data indicates that we're going in the right direction as a community, I think that we need to be mindful that 2,283 people were still victimized. And it impacts both their families and our communities as well. So our department is going to continue to work to do what we can to educate, for crime prevention, apprehension, to reduce victimization in this area in violent crime as well as nonviolent crime. So when we're talking about nonviolent crime, look at that. So nonviolent crime is actually down 14.5% in comparison to 2022. In comparison to 2021, we are down 16.9%. These include, again, burglaries, thefts, criminal mischiefs, and vehicle crimes. I know that you guys have probably been hearing about the landscape when it comes to crime, and a lot of agencies are down with crime, right? Well, this next slide, I think, is very impressive. We are down 14.3% overall in crime, but our analysts went back as far as 1993, and this is the lowest crime year that we've had since then.
Wow.
They cautioned me, though, that 2005 we switched systems and some information was lost. But then I thought about it. I'm like, if information was lost, these are actual individual crimes. So these were actually did happen. It doesn't change our number. Right. So that's pretty impressive. And largely in part to the work that our team does. So I know you guys get the council reports and you see some of the amazing work our team does on a weekly basis, but contributing to that, one incident that stuck out to me was in November of 2023. Our midnight guys, we have a lot of issues at clubs sometimes. When clubs close, there are some issues. So our guys are out there on the ground, and they're increasing visibility and trying to deter crime from happening. One of our officers that was out there on the ground, Officer Ayers, actually saw in plain view cocaine in a vehicle. He waited until the individual came to the car. He made contact with the individual. He had the probable cause to talk to him and placed him under arrest for the cocaine. He found $800 in small bills. He recovered 11.7 grams of cocaine, and they were in individual baggies for deliverance. And he recovered 2 weapons, one of the weapons which was stolen. So that's just one example of the amazing work that our officers are out there doing. And in addition to that, I mean, the follow-up by our investigators when we do have crime, they're the ones that can finish the legwork and make sure that we get good arrests and get people off the street that are victimizing our citizens. So the one crime that's always an important highlight, of course, are our homicides. This year, we have had a total of 12 homicide incidents, or 12 homicide investigations, but we actually lost 13 individuals at the hand of another. And it also includes the homicides, murders, but it also includes injury to a child or endangering a child and causing death, right? So we had one incident where 2 family members, actually was our first incident from last year, were killed in a single incident. But if you notice something about these numbers, there are a couple of things that I want to point out to you. I know you only see it in 2 now, but there were 3 injury to a child causing death. One was just upgraded to a murder. And then we have several family violence and domestic violence incidents. When I called the city manager back in November to tell him about the last injury to a child death, we started having a conversation about how trauma impacts other children who may have witnessed the violence, right? And so he wanted us to start looking into programs to make sure that we were providing adequate resources to our children who may have been exposed to violence. And I totally forgot during this conversation, but we do have a program called Handle with Care that we are currently working with, and what that is just an opportunity to bridge the gap between police officers and schools. And anytime we come across children who have been exposed to violence and trauma, that we let the Region 12 know that these children have been exposed. Since, and this, we started this in 23, 24, so just this year. And just in the fall semester, we notified them of 34 specific incidents. And then just this year, we've already notified them of 8 incidents where children were exposed to trauma or violence. And this program is designed to support the children who return to school after experiencing traumatic events. And research says that 57.8% of our children are exposed to at least one adverse childhood traumatic incident. And if these go untapped or we don't provide the resources that they need, and children are not supported, they're at risk of mental health issues, dropping out of school, and being involved in the justice system. So that's something we'll continue to look at. The International Association of Chiefs of Police also has a toolkit for addressing issues with trauma to better equip our police officers, and that's something else that we will be looking into. Our Family Violence Division, for the family violence incidents and the domestic violence incident, have created or started, we've adopted a lethality assessment. I know a lot of times we say homicides are hard to predict. Well, with the lethality assessment, it's just an evaluation where we're responding to these domestic violence calls to be able to determine the risk of individuals who may be at risk of death or serious bodily injury from a family member or a domestic partner. So our officers are taking advantage of that. In addition, after they receive those lethality assessments, they may go to our Victim Services Division so we can provide additional resources to those families in an attempt to reduce victimization or reduce the opportunity of them being seriously injured or killed. And while I'm on our Victim Services team, our Victim Services team responded to 146 family violence incidents after they occurred, 11 homicide scenes, but they responded to a total of 667 calls during the 2023 year. Work year. And we operate mostly on volunteers from that unit, so that's a pretty incredible stat. All right, when we're talking about firearms, so the total number of firearms lost and reported in 2023 dropped significantly from 2022. However, you can see that the total number of firearms recovered are still pretty high. While we've seen a 36% decrease, we're still getting a lot of guns off of the street. And I know that there are some interest in, when we're talking about gun crimes, let's talk a little bit about discharging firearm stats, and I think that's pretty significant. I'm sorry I didn't make a slide for it in time. But we gathered this data, and as far as discharging firearms calls are concerned, we have seen a 26% decrease since 2022 and a 36% decrease in discharging firearms since 2001. Shootings just occurred. Actual number of incidents in 2023 was 36, in 2022 was 46, and in 2021 was 60. So we're actually down 22% in comparison to 2021. The total number of shots fired calls are pretty significant as well. We are actually down 40% in 2023 versus 2022. So we're heading in the right direction. We just hope we can keep it up. So let's move along and talk about our dispatch. So this is it's a lot on the slide, right? So when we're talking about calls for service, the total number of calls for service are the total number of calls that were entered into CAD and where officers were dispatched to scenes, right? But that 136,959 includes everybody. The Waco Police Department responded to 94,044 calls of those calls for service. Because you realize we do answer calls for service for other organizations, other agencies. But the total number of 911 calls coming into dispatch was 129,529. 131,080 calls were non-emergency calls that came into the dispatch center. And the total number of calls that were answered was 260,000 609. And those are going to be the combination of 911 calls and the non-emergency calls, okay? The average call duration, or the amount of time that our dispatchers spend on the call with a citizen is, and I'm sorry we didn't convert this one, we forgot, we missed it, is about just under 2 minutes, at about 1 minute and 45 seconds. 20% of our, we want to make sure that, let me change because that's the next thing, I'm sorry. Okay, 80% of our calls, 911 calls, are answered in under 20 seconds. Our dispatch manager has set a new goal for this year, and she wants to make sure that 80% of our calls are answered in less than 15 seconds. So that's the goal there. But in the midst of answering all of these calls and dispatching calls, our dispatchers are also making outgoing calls for other services that are needed by our police officers, and that number was 41,416. If you look at the numbers below, and with the total number of calls that were answered, emergency and non-emergency, in our dispatch center, you're going to see a decline in calls. Well, there's a reason for that. In 2022, we started with a little pilot of an automated program where if it was a non-emergency call, that individuals could press 1, press 2, right? Because we were receiving administrative calls into the dispatch. We should not have been receiving administrative calls. If somebody's calling to talk to Chief Victorian, they shouldn't be calling dispatch, right? And so we have an automated system now. So it's been in full effect in 2000. So that's where we see the significant difference. In 2021, I think it initially came in August of 2022 is when we actually started. Okay, so that's why there's a significant drop there. But our dispatchers, again, we're still a little short-staffed. Ideally, our dispatch manager would like to see at least 8 individuals on staff. Right now, we have supplemental individuals coming in, working dispatch center. For example, my administrative assistant, when she gets off, she comes and checks in and says, I'm going up to dispatch. And she's a call taker, and we have several individuals that regularly go up to dispatch to act as call takers to support our dispatch staff. And so we're looking into other options to, again, like I said earlier, to recruit individuals that we can keep around for a long time.
You said ideally there was 8. What is it now?
4, Susie?
We have 4 to 5.
4 to 5.
And that includes the supervisor as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susie. Yes, okay. So let's look at dispatch response and hold times for all calls for service. There is an average of 12 minutes and 6 seconds in 2023 for response time. Minute and 21 seconds reduction since 2022, with the largest reduction being in the hold time. So let me tell you a little bit about the hold time. The hold time is the time that the call is entered and sent over to the dispatch who is going to dispatch the call, and then the time that they have to wait until they find a unit to be able to dispatch, okay? And then in the blue, we have the actual response time from the patrol officer once that officer receives that call. And this is the average of all calls for service. Keep in mind that most times we have about an average of about 15 officers out on the street covering 100 square mile areas. We have some overlap between 9 p.m. and 1 o'clock a.m. And sometimes we require some minimal staffing. Right now, I think we said we had 8 individuals out injured on duty, 7 injured on duty. We also have several that are using FMLA. So at any moment, we may have to minimal staff. Right now, we've been very fortunate to have officers to volunteer to minimal staff, and we haven't really had to exercise the mandatory staffing to make sure that we are at minimal staff.
Chief Victorian, you mentioned that at any given time you've got, say, 15 officers out to respond to these calls. What would be the ideal number of officers out for these calls?
Ideally, I would like to have at least 25 or so, and this is the reason. We have 3 different districts with 5 beats in each district. And so that means that an officer can cover a district and a beat. A lot of our calls, priority 1 and priority 2 calls, require 2 officers to respond. So when we have 2 officers to respond, that means that we have an area that's not being covered. And when things happen and calls drop, that means that our citizens are waiting.
Chief, I'm a little worried. Our Assistant City Manager over Finance fell out of his chair, I think, back there. I don't see Paul Kane. Can somebody, can we do a welfare check on Paul Kane? No, I think those are, it's a great question and a great response. And the reality is, there are more needs.
Yes.
In policing, so.
Yes, sir.
Respect to the response, for sure.
And we were given in the last couple of years, those 25 extra positions, which we're trying to fill.
Yeah.
And I think that once we fill those, we'll start seeing some, of course, better times with response time and increase in the number of minimal staffing on patrol. That's the idea, that's the goal. But as we increase patrol, other areas of the department are going to need to be increased as well. But yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope I have a job when I'm.
And I would say just,
Okay.
say just put as much as you can on Assistant Chief Gensch to cover as much ground as possible. I think
Okay, I will.
I think he's getting bored these days and could use
Yes,
more
yes,
beats to
yes.
cover.
When we're talking about dispatch and response and hold times to our priority 1 calls, and these are the calls that are requiring immediate response, the average time is 10 minutes and 26 seconds with an average hold time of 3 minutes and 30 seconds and a response time of 6 minutes and 56 seconds. The total has decreased about 32 seconds with a 6-second decrease in hold time and 25-second decrease in actual response time. One of the problems one of the challenges that I foresee if we do not do anything very quickly is our vehicles. So apparently, our vendors are not manufacturing our police interceptor utility vehicles as quickly as we'd like. They're producing more expensive vehicles that they can make money on. So it's actually causing a shortage for us in patrol, and we've had a couple of incidents where supervisors have had to call in a shift to give shifts to cars to the next shift. And we need to prevent that from happening. We have done some things internally to make sure that we had some coverage. For example, our neighborhood engagement team currently have those vehicles, and we're going to transition them into pickup trucks. And because we were able to get pickup trucks, and we'll put their vehicles into our patrol fleet for some of that coverage, because the last thing we need is for us not to be able to get to a citizen because we don't have a police car. So we are also working with purchasing and fleet, and we have been working diligently to try to find a solution to the issues that we're having with our cars. And so, yeah, I'm sure you'll be hearing something else about this in the near future. Okay. So our relational policing efforts. Sorry, someone have a question? Okay.
Live.
I don't know that she knows that we use this.
Knows now.
She will now. Our relational policing efforts, and y'all have heard me speak about this before, but we use relational policing to connect with our community and build trust. We believe in taking a holistic approach to addressing crime, and that includes using prevention, intervention, and apprehension. Our community outreach, community services division, which consists of our SAFE unit, our support, abatement, forfeiture, enforcement unit, our community services division, our unit, as well as our neighborhood engagement team, lead the efforts in our prevention and intervention strategies, and we always have support from our patrol officers when they're able to come out and help us with special events and stuff. I'm gonna start with our SAFE unit. Our SAFE unit currently have 73 apartment communities and rental properties that are fully certified in their crime-free programs. Their crime-free program is an 8-hour course where employees from these apartment communities and rental properties come in, and they are taught how to best protect themselves and how to best protect their clients or residents from being victimized. For those that have joined the program, they have seen a 36% reduction in the number of calls for services that actually go to their businesses, a 44% reduction in reported crime compared to the year before when they joined, and then a 61% reduction in the number of arrests on their properties the year prior to joining. They also are responsible for our crime-free hotel motel program, and they have 9 hotels and vacation rental properties that are fully certified, again, in the an 8-hour class, and they have seen a 5.4% reduction in cost of service overall at all hotels, at their hotels compared to 2022. They've taught 10 classes. They've also taught 3-day courses to other police agencies that are interested in starting the program, so people recognize our program as one to model. They've conducted 58 CPTED inspections, crime prevention through environmental design, and so they're doing amazing work that sometimes go unnoticed, but it should be recognized. Our community outreach unit, just a great group of people. We have Waco PD chaplains. Our chaplains logged over 7,100 volunteer hours last year. Our Citizens on Patrol and Citizens Police Alumni Association logged about 1,800 volunteer hours. Our police explorers participated in over 40 community events and meetings. And something else that I thought was significant that we never talk about are our Crime Stoppers results. We had 62 cases cleared last year, including bank robberies and jewelry robberies, 30 arrests made as a result of Crime Stoppers, $15,930 in property recovered, and $13,800 that was paid out, all from anonymous tips that occurred in 2023. So also in our relational policing efforts, you know, you guys have participated in our back to school bash. We had one last year in on July 29, 2023. It was held at Richland Mall. I did not know how they were going to pull it off, but by God, they pulled it off in just incredible fashion. And we couldn't do this without our community partnerships and partnerships from our stakeholders like Richland Mall, the City of Waco Housing and Community Development. There are many city departments that always help us to pull these things off, and we are grateful. We gave away 1,200 backpacks on that day. National Night Out, we were able to engage and connect with approximately 2,000 citizens. We participate in Red Ribbon Week. Our neighborhood engagement team, they have expanded our Faith in Blue weekend to a Faith in Blue week with a couple of days. And last year, we participated in 12 events. This year, in 2023, we participated, or past, in 2023, we participated in 29 events over the course of 9 days. So that was incredible. We also had our community opportunity event, which is the brainchild of one of our own, Detective Eric Hawkins. We had that event on May the 20th. And what we like to do with our community opportunity event, it's just an opportunity to be able to offer education opportunities, health opportunities, job opportunities for individuals who have been justice involved. The police is not just out there to put you in jail. We're trying to help get you a job so you don't have to go to jail. So that's the type of work that our team is coming up and being innovative and trying to help us to reduce crime. One of the programs that I am just most proud of, these ladies are fantastic. Our Unidos program, it officially kicked off in January 2023. It feels like it's been forever. But the efforts are being led by Officer Anita Gomez, Officer Sophie Martinez, and Ms. Noor Almanza. You see these ladies out and about in our Spanish-speaking communities, trying to improve our relationship with the police, improve relationships with our Spanish-speaking communities, and then providing them resources that maybe they didn't know they had access to, or they were afraid to even ask for help. They have reached over 20,000 community members through Facebooks, local meetings, and events. They participated in 31 events, 38 general meetings, and 4 community-based quarterly meetings. During the holidays, they organized the Noche de Fiesta event at the Waco Rep. Then they served over 350 individuals, gave away gifts to the kids. It was a fantastic event. And then finally, we have our Blue Santa event. we partner every year with the local Marine unit here in Waco, and the Toys for Tots program. And after that event, and we help them to distribute toys, they give us what's left over. And it's typically pretty significant. And we use these toys to take advantage of opportunities to connect with lower income families or people who may not have enough toys for their kids. I mean, if you come to our third floor during the holidays, it looks like a Toys R Us. And it's fantastic. And we encourage our police officers, our patrol officers, to go up there and make bags. And while you're on your patrol shift, make somebody's night. So it's just an incredible opportunity, and we are so grateful for the partnership with the Marine unit. Our community services division have participated in 95 neighborhood association meetings, 52 school after-school activities, 47 faith-based programs, and I can go on and on and on. And we have done 95 crime or public safety investigations received from neighborhood associations and community members. We have worked effortlessly in preparing our community to protect against attacks. We've done 37 citizen response to active shooter training events taught by the neighborhood engagement team and community outreach unit. We've done 23 security vulnerability assessment for businesses, and just an incredible amount of work to make sure that we're engaging and educating our community. Our Animal Services Division, which we acquired back in April, are doing some incredible engagement work as well. In 2023, they held 3 vaccine and microchip clinics. They performed 351 microchip implants, 404 rabies vaccinations, 448 distemper parvo vaccinations, and they also pass out information regarding the Spray Street program that provides free spay and neuter surgeries for the residents. The Spay Street program resulted in 1,828 spay and neuter surgeries that were performed in 2023. I'm wrapping this up. As far as awards and recognitions are concerned, I just want to take the time to recognize some of the awards that were received. In 2023, Waco Crime Stoppers received the Governor's Office of Texas Best Radio PSA Competition Award at the 34th Annual Texas Crime Stoppers Conference. The Waco Police Department was recognized as the 2023 State Award winner in the category of 100,000 to 300,000 population for National Night Out. We also placed in the top 10 nationally out of 35 other cities competing in the same category. For Black History Month, Sergeant Melissa Thompson received an award from St. Elizabeth University. She was also recognized as a 40 under 40 winner with the International Association's Chief of Police. Detective Joshua Fisher was the Texas Association of Law Enforcement Polygraph Investigators. He won the President's Award. And we are also represented on several national boards, including the Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Gangs Executive Council. That's Sergeant Melissa Thompson. And then Detective Fisher is also on the board of directors for the Texas Association of Law Enforcement Polygraph Investigators. We are also represented by Commander Wallace on the National Law Enforcement Community Engagement Network Best Practices Development Cohort. All right, so finally, some of the projects, new initiatives and collaborations that we are participating in. The first that I want to mention to you is, I have it on there as a call center, but it is officially known as the 911 Pre-Arrest Diversion Program. We had a call specialist which started today, and as of about 2 o'clock, she had already responded to 2 calls. One involved a subject that was considering suicide, and another involved a disturbance between a mother and daughter, where the daughter was bipolar. So we don't have the MCOT near or anything like that, but we're working with what we got so far and are in the process of trying to hire for the other positions so that in the event that they need to go out and make a connection as opposed to police, that they could. We also have the Youth Crisis Outreach Team. I'm sorry, that's the Behavioral Health Network. They received a grant for a Youth Crisis Outreach Team that focuses on response to youth ages 3 to 18. and they will operate the same as a mobile crisis outreach team. And this is really important for that age group because a lot of the crimes we're seeing are being committed by individuals who are younger and younger. And if they could come in contact with them before we come in contact with them, I think that that would be a plus for everybody. We also have Safer Together. We did the Crime Prevention Summit back in 2022, early 2022, and our team decided that they wanted to do something differently and go into the neighborhoods and target specific areas. They have plans to be at the Dewey Center on June the 11th, Doris Miller on June 13th, and then South Waco on June the 14th. And we're going to do many crime prevention summits for those areas. We are also looking to add the lead curriculum, Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence, in some of our local schools. Our social resource coordinator has made several collaborations, mental health courts, DWI courts, our veteran treatment court, received 175 direct referrals this year, and that's so that she can offer resources to help provide wraparound services for individuals who are frequent callers to PD or who need additional help after they maybe have been given an emergency detention order, right? To provide those services so that we don't see them often. And she's been doing an amazing job with that. This year, I'd like to make sure that we are developing our personnel internally. A couple of the classes that I would like to see brought to us are the active bystandership for law enforcement and a class on risk and liability for our supervisors called Reset the Clock. And we will be hosting the Texas Citizens Police Academy, I'm sorry, nope, that's not right. The 2024 Texas Crime Stopper State Conference in 2024. In 2025, we'll be hosting the Texas Association of Law Enforcement Polygraph Investigators State Conference. And also in 2025, we will be hosting the Texas Citizens Police Academy Alumni and Law Enforcement Annual Training Conference. So I think that, I say this pretty frequently, and the safety of our city is dependent on the partnerships between all of us. It's not just the police, and I think that the work that we have done and the collaborations that we have made has demonstrated that and has significantly impacted crime in the city of Waco. So thank you very much. And yeah, it's a pledge. I wish I had a speech like Ronnie, but I don't. But I love my job too, just so you know.
Comments? Just want to reiterate my thanks to the efforts that you guys are putting forward. I see a couple of the neighborhood engagement officers here tonight that I run into at the neighborhood association meetings that I attend. And they always come ready to give a lot of good information and receive a lot of positive or not positive feedback. And they do so with grace and understanding. And I really appreciate that. So thank you guys for the efforts you're putting out.
Thank you.
I'll chime in just to say, to second those remarks, Chief, thank you for your leadership. Love all the relational policing efforts that we see each week in our council update from the city manager's office, but appreciate the collaborative approach you've taken with other agencies, what you're doing with our various communities, what you're doing with behavioral health, what you're doing with these specialty treatment courts. All of that is music to our ears. But the big takeaway, as our mayor said, is we're just excited about those crime rates being at a 20-year low. So thank you for your good work in helping to facilitate that.
Yes, sir.
I'll just echo what Josh and Darius have said. Yeah, the citizens want to feel safe, and it's fundamental and necessary, and you have done that well. You have a well-trained staff, well-equipped staff, well-led staff, and hopefully well-funded. Crime rates are down, both violent and non-violent, and I like how you're showing, and I know we've all talked about this, not only year over year, but these are like 20-year lows, and I guess the evidence shows that Wacoans are behaving themselves better than ever. You know, I'd like to think that. Also, just your focus, as Josh just said, on relational policing and building trust with the community, I think is phenomenal. And how you're coordinating behavioral health as that kind of becomes a bigger part of effective policing. You're doing great there. And I like the way you're thinking about patrol. I do like the way you're thinking about filling in those roles and your dispatch too. And I want to make sure that we have, I think our current budget is allowing you to fill those positions. We're just having trouble finding
Yes,
those.
which
Okay.
is, yes.
And you might just, we don't have to talk a lot about it, but this isn't just a Waco situation on filling policing roles. I mean, other cities are also facing, filling out their police staff. Yeah, lastly, I mean, you, Chief Victorian, you show that you care, you're engaged, you're a great communicator, and you're a great leader, and I appreciate what you're doing for the Waco Police Department.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Chief Victorian. I appreciate this report, and I want to thank PD for making us safer this year, past year. I know I see a lot of police cars out in my district, and I appreciate that, and I always go, yay. You know, I know they don't see me, but I know my residents feel the same way. We love seeing our police cars out there. We feel safe and protected, and I know it's not an easy job for police people to be out there, policemen. I've been real close to the police department because my uncle was an assistant police chief at one time. My cousins and a lot of my family members have been police officers. So I've always had a close relationship with what's going on in the police department because I hear from them. And I appreciate all the work that you have done with the police officers to bring our crime statistics down. And that is exciting for me, real exciting for me. And so I want to thank you and our police department for being out there for us and protecting us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for this report. We do look forward to this annually, and I wanted to echo the sentiments of my council members in applauding you and your staff for keeping us safe, not only in the job that you were assigned to do, but in the extra mile that many of you go. I know relational policing was a new concept here, but I think the team has embraced it in a way that it goes back to the last time when, you know, there was money to do it in the 90s, and looking at how much impact it made on the communities then is reflective of how much impact it's making on the communities now. I think that as important as the crime rate numbers being low are, I am also pleased to see the close rates of those homicides. It's one thing to have fewer, but it's another thing in a year out of 12, I think 7 are closed. So that speaks that all the steps are happening, not just from, you know, the crime happening, but to the arrest. And, you know, that is making the streets safer. That is bettering our communities because our violent offenders are no longer on the street. I was really excited to hear about the crime-free program at the apartments. Just mere presence oftentimes changes the trajectory of certain apartment and housing communities. I did have a question. What's the follow-up after the training? Is there any?
So we'll have to get back
That's
to you
fine.
on that.
That's fine.
But once they are certified in the program, I'm sure that there are some things that they have to maintain in order to stay a part of the program.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Very good. And you know, I'm excited to hear about Safer Together. I think the Crime Prevention Summit was great, and I was like, when's the next one? And we're like, we're working on it. But I like the fact that it will be neighborhood specific, because see, the needs are going to be different. And so as opposed to having this whole expo kind of things, you can really pinpoint what that community needs, and I think that'll be great for our neighborhoods. I think that was it. But please, you know, keep up the good work. We are especially proud of the innovation of your team and your officers, because it is, what we, the job is the job. But when you go above and beyond the job, that really means that you love your city, and you're showing it in a way that is beneficial not only to the residents, to us, but to your team as well, because that shows internally that, hey, if I have an idea, people are hearing me and people are listening to me. And that's always, on the job, that makes you feel good. So just know that we appreciate you, we hear you, and we see you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention the clearance rates. The national clearance rate has been updated. It's in 2022, and it's down to 52.3%. It was at 63, I think. This year, our clearance rate was 71.3%. Last couple of years, it's been a little bit higher, but that's okay. We have some ongoing investigations that we need to clear out. But just so you know, our clearance rate is 71.3% this year.
I'll just wrap up quickly. I know that there's a lot of complexity around crime, and I don't believe the good data that we got today was by accident. I think it was the work of really sacrificial and selfless people dedicating themselves to making our city a safer place. And I just want to say how much I appreciate our police officers, their families, our chief, and our city management team, who are really dedicated to making Waco a safe place. Taking holistic, creative, innovative approaches to achieving that. Thinking outside the box, deploying multifaceted strategies to ensure that that's the case. I don't think this is by accident. I think it's because of the blood, sweat, and tears of a lot of dedicated people who are working really hard, and I'm really, really appreciative. So thank you for all that our police officers do. I believe Waco is going to continue to be a safe city. I believe that Waco is going to continue to be a safe city who honors and respects our police officers who are doing work that deserves honor. I couldn't be more thankful and look forward to continuing to see these results get better and better as the years go by.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mayor and Council, for a second, humor me. Ditto to everything that's been said. Police and fire, both public safety teams, amazing work. It will bring tears to your eye or goosebumps or joy to your heart as you hear the individual stories of contributions that these individuals make to making our community feel safer and to impact people on their worst day. It's really valuable. It's also pretty expensive. And this last year, we crossed over the $100 million threshold in annual operating expenses when you combine police and fire together, which is an investment, right, in all these stories and all these feelings of safety and high-quality people, as you've heard from today. It's an investment. But I did want to make sure, as we talk about results, we also have to talk about where we put our dollars and how many dollars do we have to give out. At $100 million of investment a year, that doesn't include debt service on apparatus or buildings, but at $100 million a year, that is actually more than every dollar we get in property tax by about $12 million bucks. So you, as a council, have said this is very important to us, very important to us. So in the context of communicating results, I think we also have to say we are aligned. These aren't just words. What you're saying and what you do and what the rest of this team does to keep this community safe, we put into action. And it's worth it. And it is going to be a challenge to keep it going long term. Because of some of the limitations we have on our revenue streams. But it's something that I think y'all ought to take some credit for as a council for continuing to give us the tools we need to do the job to keep people safe. So thank y'all. Mayor, we are at a time. So I'm going to let Galen's presentation roll to another agenda. We have a little bit of time for that in March. And then Clint will cover work sessions, the public hearings in the business session, and we'll break for y'all's dinner, and we will not have an exec session.
Great.
Okay? Thank you
you.
all.
So we will now recess the work session, reconvene regular session for executive session as read into the record by the city secretary at 5:43 PM.
Notice is hereby given that the city council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions. Attorney briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071, ordinances regarding safety at intersections, real property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072, and economic development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. We are now in executive session.